So, welcome everybody. Let me rephrase that one. So, welcome everybody. This is Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Community Call. It is December 9th. My name is Vesa Jovanovinen. I'm a Principal Product Manager for Microsoft, working on community, open source, and many other areas across multiple organizations internally in Microsoft. Now, this is the Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time call. So, it's always typically Microsoft speakers, so the people who are actually creating the capabilities, or from a PM perspective, or the cloud advocates or engineers and so on, showing you the latest and greatest within the product. And today on the agenda side, we're going to go through the typical set of assets, recapping all of the URLs and assets which are available for you to get started in Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. We do understand that there's a lot of repeating information there, but that's by design as well, because there's always new people who are arriving on these calls. So it's important that the new people also know where to get started. And then we go to the actual starts of the day. So Paolo is going to start today by covering leveraging Microsoft 365 Copilot APIs in SharePoint Framework Solution. Really powerful combination. You can combine SharePoint Framework Solutions running within the context of SharePoint and then accessing the Copilot APIs, which went partly GA, partly preview in Ignite 2025, so within a few weeks back. And then the second demo today will be by Reid Carlberg on SharePoint Embedded Wrapped 2025, updates from Ignite, and much more as well. So looking forward on that one. Really good, really SharePoint specific topic, but again, Microsoft 365 Copilot APIs, and of course SharePoint Embedded has a lot of Copilot capabilities on it as well. Now, quick recap, all of the assets and URLs which are available for you to get started. So first of all of these community calls are getting recorded, and we publish them within 24 hours within our Microsoft Community Learning YouTube channel at AKMS Community YouTube. So that is a location which you want to subscribe, and we just recently crossed 70,000 subscribers there, which is a great achievement. Now, we do have our LinkedIn page and group for discussions and updates, a great location to stay up to date on the latest videos and any other news. We do have a lot of open source assets, but as it might be a bit difficult to find the relevant sample for you across the hundreds of repos and location, we do have our sample galleries, which is a great way to filter to find the relevant sample, which is the one what you're looking for. AKMS Community Samples is the URL for that one. A lot of URLs, luckily only one or two, or either one of them, AKMS Community Home URL or Community MS URLs are the one where you can you will be redirected to the community page, where you can find always more up-to-date information on all of these topics as well. Now, we do have quite a few of these community calls, so every single Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time, every single Thursday, 7 a.m. Pacific time. Tuesday calls are Microsoft presented calls, so this is this call where you are today, and then Thursday call is with community demos. This is typical setup, what we're doing within this call. Now, this Tuesday call will be on a break, holiday break after the next week, 16th of December call, and we'll be back on the 13th of January. So we're missing 3 weeks there. If you are joining on the call during that time period, you will be rerouted to a blog post update, which will show you the latest on that one. So we're mapping that AKMS address, which you click when you join the calls, on redirecting you for more information. Now, the Thursday call, which is 7 a.m. every single Thursday, we will actually keep on doing those calls. So if you don't have anything else to do, if you don't have family or joining people, you on the holiday season, you can join the calls and join other people in the community, and we'll be there for you to have a discussion. We can do ad hoc demos, Q&As, and all of that during the holiday season as well. So that's happening every single Thursday, 7 a.m. Pacific time. We will not have specific set of demos during that time period, but we're willing to actually show you whatever comes to mind if you have any questions during that holiday season as well. Now, we also have Power Platform monthly community call, which is happening next week for December, and then Office and monthly community call with Microsoft presenters, which is happening once a month as well. You can download recurrent invites as AKMS Community Calls URL, and you can always go to Meetup service where you can see the upcoming agendas for these calls as well. So, for example, if you're looking into, hey, wait a minute, so next Thursday, this week Thursday, there's a community call. What is the agenda for that call? Well, go to the Meetup service and you can actually check out that agenda, or you can subscribe to the Meetup service and you will get an email whenever the agenda is getting published, and then you're able to see what's on upcoming call within the email. Now, we do welcome, for a lot of these calls, we do welcome community presenters. This is a great way, for example, getting your MVP status, or if you want to renew or get renewed on your MVP, great way of getting those MVP points, so to say, collected. Or if you just want to get started on the journey of presenting, first maybe online and then in person later, we are here to help you on that journey as well. You can sign up for the community call demos at AKMS community request demo URL. This is a simple form, and then we will contact you later on getting you scheduled on the suitable call based on the content what you are providing as the demo request. We already mentioned that we have the sample gallery. We do have more than 2,600 samples. That's massive numbers. 2,600 samples from Microsoft and community in a one centralized location across all of the different things in Microsoft 365 and SharePoint and Microsoft Graph and connectors and all of that stuff from a one centralized location, making it super easy for you to access and find the relevant samples for you. Now, as you find a sample, you might be wondering on, wait a minute, how do I actually get started on consuming them? Or maybe you have a sample and you want to contribute that for the community. And that's where we have Sharing is Caring initiative. And David Warner, directly from sunny LA, is going to talk about what is this all about.
Yes, thank you, Vesa. It is sunny out today. I wish we had rain. So anybody send that rain our way, I would take it. But what is sunny and shiny is the community, and that is the opportunity to contribute, as Vesa had mentioned. But we know that there are opportunities where things like GitHub might prevent that because it sounds scary and uses phrases like pull request and blame and raw and fork. And what does all that mean? We will demystify it. So we finally have a session scheduled. It's coming up. The form is going to be edited soon. So just keep an eye out at ak.ms/sharingiscaring, and that will be available for registration. It's the week Monday before Christmas and New Year, so we know a lot of folks have some time off and want to spend it with the community, or it's a slow period at work and you're working and you want to take that opportunity to learn more. This is going to be a fun session. We're going to be there. Myself, Hugo, and I both will be there, and we'll be guiding everyone in the community. And it is a live contribution and your safe space, which means that you can ask any and all questions. We know oftentimes when things are recorded, you get fearful of asking those questions because you don't want to be on record. Because you're thinking, well, if everybody needed to know, everybody would be asking. But no, we want everybody to be empowered to ask and learn together. We are a community, family, and we love to support one another. So be on the lookout. It's going to be a good time. And of course, it does count as a contribution. And that's important to know because once you do contribute, such as joining the Sharing is Caring and making a contribution, you will be recognized. So we've got our community recognition program labeled Best in Class by Credly, everybody, because of the amazing work that you're doing. We've got our fun seasonal thematic badges like the Back to the Community and Slice of Sample Season of Getting. And of course, for the first time this year, Home Alone and Elf themed badges, which are just fun, but they are real and accredited. These all add up to show that you are making a difference in the community. You are contributing in ways that are being recognized. So share that with your manager, share that with your clients, and let them know that you're making a difference. It could mean the difference between the next raise or the next contract to show that you are involved in a way that is being recognized. So thank you again. It is absolutely free, no cost. Just need you to opt in just once, ak.ms/community/recognition. We're setting up some newsletters around this as well. So we're super excited for that. Be on the lookout in the new year for that, and a ton of new ways to contribute and be recognized. So thank you all again very, very much. Vesa, back to you in the, is it sunny today, Finland studios? Hopefully.
Rainy. Oh, once again. No, no, thank you, LA.
Rotation to be created, right?
Switch positions. That would be really good because you need to have rain and then I want to have sun. So that's really good. Anyway, thank you, David, and thank you, LA Studios Helsinki taking over. Thank you for recapping on that one. As David was saying, best in class, acknowledged by the Credly itself. Now, quick recap on all of the events which are happening. Obviously, TechCon Seattle, Atlanta, Dallas already happened. Atlanta has been announced as a FabCon in March 16 to 40, and then Chicago was just recently announced to be happening next year in 2026 in June 15 to 19th. So please check out more details at techcon365.com. We also have the Microsoft 365 Community Conference coming up this spring at April 21st to 23rd. That is happening in Orlando this year in Lowe's Sapphire Falls and Lowe's Royal Pacific Resorts. I think we've been there in the past as well, if I remember correctly, a few years back in a bit of maybe it was the Power Platform Conference. Doesn't matter. Great location. and Orlando is always a great location to actually visit. Then followed up on Orlando and April, we have ECS, European Collaboration Summit, happening in 5th to 7th of May in Cologne, Germany. Just yesterday, the speakers for this were accepted or selected, and those speakers will be listed in the website pretty soon when the 2026 program for that conference will be published. Then followed up on that conference, we have the European Power Platform Conference happening in 1st to 4th of June 2026, and obviously other conferences happening a bit later on 2026. I didn't get them yet listed in here. But on top of that, there's a lot of other smaller events happening all around the world. And the easiest way to find out what those are is to go to the communitydays.org. This is a one centralized location where you can go and see all of the different events, where you can meet other people in the community across the world. So from Tallinn to Germany, Slovenia, Honolulu, and so on. So a lot of different opportunities to catching up with the community. Now, quick recap also on news, and we are heading slowly on the holiday season in the Northern Hemisphere. Well, in general on the holiday season, so the amount of news are now slowing down, but we do have few updates this week coming from Microsoft as well, which is really cool as well. Now, we also wanted to remind you on our prompt library, PMP prompt library at AKMS/PMP prompt library, and every single week we actually acknowledge a prompt of the week, and this time this is coming from Valeras Narbutas, and Valeras has shared a prompt what he's using to verifying code or testing code and getting input from the Copilot to actually validate the code. And when you run the prompt with the code, with the inputs, you actually get a nice result on what the LLMs and AI thinks about the code, what you're sharing, and how it could be further improved, for example, using this example in here. So really good example. Thank you, Valeras, for sharing that prompt, how you can use Copilot efficiently on the day-to-day work. Then it is time to go to the picture time. So let's actually flip in the cameras on. I will set up the Camtasia, set up the modes. Let's see if we can actually get everything to work properly today. So let me flip us to the Keda mode picture, and let me flip us in here and start the Camtasia. And we are pretty in a good shape, picture perfect almost. I will change the scene a bit. That is so boring. Let's go to the forest. The green one is always the best one. And let me find my Camtasia is over there. And let me make sure that I actually have the right screen, that I'm recording the right screen. There we go. Let's wait a few more seconds. We are not in a massive rush because we're right on schedule before we go to the demos of today, and only 2 demos of today, for Paolo first and Reid follows. So we do have 50 seats in a room, 50 seats. We can still fit in a few people joining. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Maybe we'll start recording. Every now and then, unfortunately, even though you enable the camera, you don't actually get to be in the screen. It's a bit complicated. I don't know what's causing that. But let's do some hand waving, everybody. We'll capture a GIF animation out of that. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being part of the community. Awesome to see you in the call. Awesome to see everybody. And we have close to 200 people, even though we're heading into the holiday season. That's really cool to see. Thank you for being part of this community. And good hand waving in the room as well. Thank you for that. Excellent. Good to catch up and good to see familiar faces there as well. So then let's actually go to the stars of the day. As said, we're going to start with Paolo, who's going to talk about leveraging Microsoft 365 Copilot APIs in SharePoint Framework Solution. Really exciting capability. He did shared some of those capabilities and APIs last week, but today we're going to see a real example on that. And then Reid is going to continue with SharePoint embedded updates. But Paolo, I think you are good to go on your side.
Yeah, I think you can see my screen. Can you confirm that?
Yes, I can see the screen. I can hear you. We are good to go. Take it away.
Perfect. So let's have fun. And today we're going to see how we can use the Microsoft 365 Copilot APIs in a SharePoint framework solution. So for those of you who were in this meeting or who have seen the YouTube video of the previous episode, we saw the overall architecture and what Copilot APIs are. I will do a quick recap just in case and just to be sure that we are all on the same page. And then I will move to the actual implementation of a nice looking SharePoint framework set of web parts, let me put it this way. I'm Paolo Pialorsi. I'm a senior developer advocate in Microsoft, and my role is to spread the knowledge about how to extend Microsoft 365. So that's why I'm here today. And talking about extending Microsoft 365, one really interesting new capability that we introduced at Ignite in preview, partially in preview, a couple of weeks ago, is the capability to use a set of REST APIs to interact with Microsoft 365 Copilot, so that you can create your own custom developed solutions with whatever technology you like. And you can rely on the WorkIQ powerful capabilities, including the Copilot APIs to enrich your custom solutions. What are the APIs available through the Copilot APIs? This is the set of APIs that are available right now. And the search API and the chat API are those that I will focus on today in this demo. The search API allows you to, as the name implies, rely on the natural language syntax to make a search query across the content you have in the target Microsoft 365 tenant using the Copilot engine to search for the content. The chat API allows you to create your own chat-based solution, which in the backend relies on the actual engine, so the orchestrator and the foundational model and all the knowledge base and capability of Microsoft 365 Copilot, but you can do that from whatever technology and whatever application you like. The other APIs will not be covered in this demo, and if you want to dig into them, as I said, you can find another video on the YouTube channel of the community where you can see and dig into all of them. So now let's focus on using these APIs from within a SharePoint framework solution. So since the Copilot APIs rely on the same endpoints and technology that we use for Microsoft Graph and nowadays WorkIQ, speaking more in general about the new technologies for interacting with our Microsoft 365 tenant content, well, you can simply rely on the Microsoft Graph Client B3 type inside SharePoint Framework, and you can easily get access to the APIs to consume chat and search. Both chat and search are under preview, as I said. So right now, in order to being able to reach those APIs, you need to go for the beta version, and you will not find them now in version 1.0. And once you target the beta version, you can simply provide the URL of the endpoint you want to target to start a chat conversation or a search. Of course, since we are going to target content which is stored in the Microsoft 365 tenant where we are, we also need to have proper permissions set up for our SharePoint Framework solution. So in the Web API permission request section of the package solution.json file, this is the list, as you can see on this slide, the list of permission scopes that we need to being able to interact with the whole set of capabilities. Then, depending on what you want to do, you might not need to go to the mail and you don't need the mail.read, or you don't need to browse the people and you don't need the people read all, or whatever else. But generally speaking, if you want to have the whole set of capabilities available at your hands and at your end user hands, this is the list of permissions you need. And as you can see, all of them are permissions to read content, because through Copilot, we don't necessarily need to update data, but actually we just want to read the content we have in the tenant. And then, as I was telling you, we simply rely on the Microsoft Graph Client, we target the beta version, and we provide as the API URL, the URL of the API that we want to consume. So now, let's have a high-level overview of what are the technical requirements to consume the chat and the search APIs, and then I will move to the actual implementation of the demo that I'm going to show you. So whenever you want to use the Copilot chat API, first of all, you will need to create a new conversation. So there is a specific API endpoint that you need to use to do the handshake and to get back from the Copilot chat API a conversation ID, which you will need for whatever else message you want to send in the chat session with the Copilot chat. So you create the conversation, you save the conversation ID somewhere, for example, in the state of your component, of your React component, if you are relying on React in your web part implementation. And then whenever you send a chat message, you provide the conversation ID within the content of the chat message to instruct the Copilot API about what is the chat conversation ID you want to target. And then you get back a JSON response, which will include all of the information about the conversation, and you will be able to render the output with whatever technology you like, including information like the citations eventually available for the response you get, the sensitivity labels, and all the other stuff that relates to the response you get. So when you make a request, just to give you an idea, the request for a chat message will be made of the text message itself. So we could say the prompt of the user, okay? So you collect the prompt and you put it inside the message text property. The location hint property is the one you use to instruct the Copilot chat engine about the time zone you want to use in the response. And then additional context is really useful whenever you want to add specific contextual information to the Copilot chat API. As you can see, this property is optional and is an array. So you can provide 0 or more strings with context, which could be just information about the user, like you want to let Copilot know that the user has some specific information or capabilities or features based on the user profile, or maybe you want to provide instructions like you do when you create an agent, and I will show you an example soon. And then once you have done that, you can also optionally provide the contextual resources, which allow you to select if you want to enable the web search or not. So by setting the is web enabled in the web context, you can switch on or off the option to rely also on the web content available through Microsoft Bing. And then you can also provide a list of files that you can use as grounding data, as additional information for your prompt, so that you will instruct Copilot to simply target the files, the URLs that you provide through this array of files. When you send such kind of a message to the chat API, you get back a response, which is providing you back the information about the conversation itself in the header part, and then in the messages array, you will get back all of the messages which are part of the current conversation. And for each of them, for example, in the attributions, you will find the citations, if any, in the response. In the text of the message, you will find the actual response from Copilot, which usually is a markdown formatted content. So it is a good idea to rely on a markdown rendering React component. And then you can also get information about the sensitivity of the data that you get back from Copilot through the sensitivity label section of the response. And you will see it in action soon in the demo. Talking about the Copilot Search API, instead, what we do with the Search API is to just trigger a search based on a prompt. So we use natural language to define the search query. So we send the search request. We don't need to do any kind of initialization. We don't need any conversation ID. We just trigger the request sending the search as a natural language prompt, and we get back the response that we can process to render the output. In the request, we have the query itself, which will be natural language, the page size if we want to do paging across all of the responses, and then the data sources that we want to target if, again, also with the search experience, we want to target a specific subset of documents and content in our Microsoft 365 tenant. And we can also specify through the resource metadata names if we want to retrieve not only the URLs of the items matching the search query, but also some additional metadata for those documents, like, for example, the title or the author of the document. When you trigger the search request, you get back a response, which is yet another JSON response. And in that one, you will find the total count of items matching your search criteria. So if you are doing paging, for example, you get back 100 items matching the search criteria, but you will get them 20 by 20. And you can use the add OData next link to move to the next page. And you can read how many items are matching through the total count. And then you have the search if array, which gives you back for each and every item matching your search criteria, what the item is with a web URL, with a preview, short preview of the content of the item, the resource type to let you know what kind of item you have got back from the search result, and the resource metadata property, which is a record with a string to represent the name of the metadata field, and the other unknown field is the actual value of that specific metadata property in the item. So this is just to give you a better understanding of the API itself. But now let's move to the actual demo and see it first of all in action, and then from a code implementation perspective. So let me move here. And the demo I'm going to show you is already available on the sample gallery. And you can find the URL to this page in the chat message that I pasted in the call a few minutes ago. And you will find it, I guess, in the comments related to the YouTube video related to this demo. Now, it's available on GitHub as such, and it relies on the Copilot APIs. And again, this URL is available also in the documentation of this sample, and will allow you to go through all of the APIs available nowadays through the Copilot APIs. Now, this is the actual demo that I implemented for you. Let's start with the search, and then we will move to the Copilot chat. Just to give you an idea of how the search capabilities work, we can, for example, provide a search query like, can you find documents about auto insurance? Now I'm in a tenant which is targeted for an hypothetical Java insurance company where I have documents about insurance claims, insurance claim policies, and content like that. So by providing this natural language query, can you find documents about auto insurance, and triggering it with the search button, I can get back from the Copilot Search API the list of documents that are matching my criteria. I can see that I have a link to open the documents directly from this interface. I can see the highlighted words matching my search criteria, and I can see who the author is. If we look at the message we get as a response from the search API, let's do it again. Let's search it again. As you can see, we make a REST API request for the Copilot/search endpoint. In the payload, as I was telling you, we have the content I was showing you on the slide deck, and I'm retrieving the title and author of the documents matching the criteria. And in the response, we get for all of them the web URL, the resource type, the preview of the content, which is the one we see right here, as well as the highlighting of the matching words and the resource metadata for every single item. So precisely what I was telling you before. How does it work? Well, let me switch to Visual Studio Code. And here we have the Copilot Search Web part. In the Copilot Search Web part, I'm relying on a service that I implemented so that I can use the service scope-based model for my services. So basically, inside this web part, whenever I go through the on-init, I get an instance of this Copilot Search Service, which is actually implementing the iCopilot Search Service interface, which provides me just a search method, which looks for the query string and the options I was telling you about before. And then in the actual implementation of the Copilot Chat Service, Copilot Search Service, when I go to the constructor, I can create a new instance of all of the needed tools. And right here, for example, I need to rely on the Microsoft Graph client. So I use the service scope object to get a new instance of the Graph client factory. And then I get an instance of the Microsoft Graph client version 3, so that in the search function, I can simply say, once I go through all of the settings and all of the input parameters for my search, that I want to create a request body, I want to configure the page size, I want to configure any additional data sources, and then I simply want to make a post request providing that JSON request body to the Copilot/search endpoint for the beta version of Graph. And I get back the response so that I can render it in the output, which I handle in the Copilot Search React component, where I simply take care of handling the search request from the user. I get the search query from the UI, and then I get the Copilot Search Service instance if it is available, and I rely on that one to trigger the search method and to get back the response that I will store in the state of my React component. So that in the React component, I can simply do the rendering of all of the items matching my search criteria. Should be here. Okay, search result.map. And for each of them, I extract the title, the author, and the preview, the formatted one. And as such, I can render with a div the output of every single matching item. So pretty simple and straightforward. And as I said, you will find the source code on GitHub. It's already there. Second option, second web part, is the Copilot chat one. So in this one, we are going to rely on the Copilot chat APIs. So first of all, in the settings of this web part, in the properties, you can configure the additional instructions. And for this one, for example, I said you are an insurance advisor helping user to find information about insurance-related topics. If the prompt is not related to insurance topics, simply answer, I'm sorry, this is out of my context. Use emojis in your responses. So this is the set of contextual information I'm providing to the Copilot chat API web part. Then I also have a flag that I can use to enable or disable the web content. And I wanted also to have the capability with a really basic user experience. Right now, you can improve it if you like, but I can provide as a comma-separated list all of the documents I want to target. Specifically, in my demo scenario, what I have is a document library in SharePoint Online, where I store a bunch of documents, including a claim policies document for the auto insurances and another one for the homeowners insurances. So what I'm doing right here is that I'm targeting, let me make much more space here, I'm targeting both of the documents here so that all of the prompts that I will send through this specific and dedicated chat hosted in SharePoint Online through SharePoint Framework will simply target the claims policies for my insurances in the hypothetical Zava company. So here, from a user experience perspective, I can, for example, provide a prompt like, what are the claims insurance policies for our company? So a really generic one right now. I will trigger this request, and it will target the Copilot chat API. Again, and one more time, I think it is a bit too late to see with F12 what's going on, but I will make another prompt to show you what's going on the wire. But now, the Copilot engine is processing my request. And of course, it is up to you to build a nice looking UI like the one we have in Copilot when we see the multicolored dots moving on the screen to give the idea that something is happening under the cover. And once the Copilot engine will be ready, we will get back through the API endpoint the response and the release. And let me show you what's in the response. Let me make much more room for it. So here we have the output, including all of the information retrieved from my target documents in the target document library in SharePoint Online. And this is well formatted using Markdown. Of course, I can keep on chatting on the same conversation. So I can start asking information for claim policies for auto insurance, for example. Let's do that. And now the request will be yet another request for the chat endpoint. Let me make much more room while it is working on it. So it is a request for this specific endpoint. As you can see here, we have the conversation ID that we initialized at the beginning of our conversation. And in the request, we provide the additional context and all of the information I was showing you before, like the files, and I've got the response. And in the response, we get the data structure I told you before with the messages array and with all of the messages, including the message that I sent, as well as the message that I received back from the actual conversation, as well as all of the citations to the documents which are related to the response I've got. And again, one more time, I can show you that I've got back the response, including emojis, if I like to get them back from the agent. In case you provide a prompt which is not targeting the actual context, like, can you explain me how LLMs work, you will get back the, I'm sorry, this is out of my context, which is the behavior I defined for my custom web part. So this is, again, really nice looking and powerful. And whenever you start a new conversation, you will see that now we reset all of the context. And if I'll make another prompt, the last one, we will see that we are going to create a new conversation first, and we get back the idea of a new conversation through the Copilot/conversation endpoint. And then we use that conversation ID to interact with the Copilot chat API. So now let's move again to the source code and let's see how it is implemented. And here we are. Okay, so let me close the Copilot search one, and we have the Copilot chat web part. In this one, same architecture as before. So in the web part, we create an instance using the service scope of a service called Copilot chat service, which implements the iCopilot chat service. So the iCopilot chat service is a bit more complex than the search one. In fact, we have, first of all, in that file, also the definition of all of the data structure we use, like the conversation message, and all of the data structure that we need to handle in order to properly manage the request and response with the Copilot chat API. And then in the actual interface, we provide the create Copilot conversation function, which will be the one triggering the creation of a new conversation to retrieve a new conversation ID. And then the send chat message, which will rely on the information we can provide to the actual backend chat API of Copilot. So in the real implementation of the service, as before in the constructor, we get a reference to the Microsoft Graph client. And then in the create Copilot conversation, really easily, we just target the Copilot/conversation with the post empty body under the beta version, and we get back the conversation object, which will include the conversation ID. And whenever we send a message to the chat conversation, we provide the conversation ID we want to target, the message, and all of the options, including the optional ones. And again, we process the business logic. We see what input arguments we've got from the user. We create a request body as a chat message request, including the user prompt, the location hint, which are mandatory, and then we add any other additional property if it is provided. Once we are ready with the layout, with the setup of our request body, we post it to the Copilot/conversation/the ID of the target conversation/chat. We get back the response and we provide it to the Copilot chat component. In the Copilot chat component, we have quite some logic to handle whether if we are processing the message from the user, let me close this one, the message provided by the user or the message provided as a response by Copilot chat API. And here we handle that, defining if the role of the message was assistant or the user. We store all of the messages in the state to keep track of all of the conversation in a scrollable user experience. But whenever we want to start a new conversation, if it is not there yet, we simply trigger the new conversation with the function we have in the service. And whenever we want to send a new chat message, we rely on the Copilot chat service and we send a message with the input arguments I was telling you about before. And then we process the output and we store the output in the state of the React component. And as before, if I scroll down a bit, in the React component, we have the actual rendering of the UI, which includes the rendering of the chat history, which will be mapped to a set of divs, which will change the output based on the fact that the message is for the user or for the assistant. And then there we render also the response we get from, and the content of the message we get from Copilot using this React Markdown component that allows me to do proper rendering of Markdown content inside the UI of my web part. So again, simple and straightforward, quite some business logic behind the scenes to handle the user experience. And last but not least, in the package solution.json file of my solution, I need to provide the web API permission request sections in which I can then specify all of the permission scopes I need in order to being able to consume my target API. And that's it. This solution has been already created using the release candidate of SharePoint Framework 1.22. So you can also have fun with the latest and greatest release of SPFx if you like. So just as a reminder, go to the sample gallery and feel free to download the sample and have fun with it. That said, as a reminder, the useful links for this demo, and you can find them in the chat as well. And I think that's all for me. And we can just say thank you and enjoy the reminder part of this community call. Back to you, Vesa.
Excellent. Thank you, Paolo. Really, really cool storytelling and great work on showcasing that in practice. So awesome stuff. Obviously, if you're not a developer, it might be a bit too deep dive, but again, it's awesome to see how you handled that API calls as well. Super, super cool work on that. Brilliant stuff. Now, then it's time to move into the SharePoint embedded world. I think we have some news from Ignite and a few other things, and a summary from 2025 from Reid on SharePoint embedded.
Yeah, hey everyone. Nice to see you on this last M365 community call of 2025. I thought what I would come on and do is I wanted to actually start by just kind of give you some updates about what the team's been up to and some of the feedback that we've had. Before we get started, could everybody take a second and go into chat and just describe your comfort level with SharePoint Embedded? SharePoint Embedded is a relatively new technology. We've been talking about it here with Vesa on the community calls for, I don't know, probably a year and a half now, Vesa. Does that sound right? Like, I think we kicked it off about a year and a half ago.
Something like that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, we're on from like time to time. And, my question here is really like where people are with it in terms of their comfort level. And I'm seeing, all kinds of interesting responses in here. We've got some not comfortable at all. We got some beginner. I see and I understand what it is, but have not worked with it yet. Decent understanding, interest level high, comfort level, let's see, completely unfamiliar. Okay, this is fantastic. So feel free to please keep jumping in here because, what I'm never sure about is, how many people have already heard this message, and I definitely don't want to, be redundant about it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you some updates, as Vesa said, from what we did in 2025. I'm going to talk a little bit about it. I see bed of nails here. I'm really loving that. I don't know how to interpret it, though. So if you want to add some more data to that, please, that would be great. Okay, so, I want to start just by saying thank you from the entire SharePoint Embedded crew. If you're new to this call or this is the first time that you're hearing about SharePoint Embedded, some of these names might be new to you, but we have a great crew that is helping customers around the world understand what SharePoint Embedded is, understand how to use it. And you can reach all of us at this SharePoint Embedded at Microsoft.com. Now, I should point out that there are many other people behind the scenes who are helping this. People who are kind of deep in the engineering stack, people who are working in the search section, and of course, people who are working with us across Copilot and the various APIs, including the ones that Paolo just demonstrated. So lots going on here. We've been all around the world with you in 2025, and I have a big asterisk because we didn't hit Latin America, APAC, or Africa. So we missed some big parts of the world, but we've been to a lot of places as we talk with you. And it's been a lot of fun to meet you, understand what your points of view on SharePoint Embedded are, understand what your interest is. And I wanted to actually just post a quick picture because we just got back. Steve is actually on the plane right now. Coming back from ESPC, where he and Shreyas had a chance to talk with a great group about what SharePoint Embedded is. They were actually in the big auditorium there, Vesa, which is amazing because anytime you get, the whole thing up there on the screen is super fun. And of course, earlier this year, we're at other conferences. So we've been at Ignite and at Build and at Airlift, ATL TechCon. We also did the North American Collaboration Summit talking about SharePoint Embedded. So although we're a relatively new product, we're definitely telling the story in as many places as we can. Now, the fundamental truth that we are addressing is that when you're working in an organization, documents are everywhere. And I'm going to guess that everybody on this call has experienced this reality. It's not just in SharePoint Embedded. People have documents, or not just in SharePoint Online, I mean. People have documents which are stored as part of various ISV applications. The average enterprise has something like 4 non-SharePoint Online ECM systems that are out there storing documents and doing something. And there's a big problem when you have all this. And it is that, you now have all this skew around these critical capabilities in terms of the way that you're working with documents and files. So these critical capabilities come down to security, AI, your ability to collaborate, your ability to be globally compliant with what it is that you're doing. And that's really where SharePoint Embedded comes in. So SharePoint Embedded is an API-only version of SharePoint's document management capabilities. It's not all of SharePoint, It's the document management capabilities. And the whole idea is that it creates a universal document layer fully integrated with your most strategic platform, Microsoft 365. And it delivers Microsoft 365 services through whatever app you're integrating it into. These are things like Copilot, Purview Compliance, any E3 and E5 security capabilities that you might have automatically apply, all the core storage capabilities. And it does all of this as an Azure service. So it's actually storing your documents inside Microsoft 365, but outside SharePoint. And I'll show you a little bit more about how that works in just a minute. So if you think about it, there's a lot that is in SharePoint embedded for, just a huge variety of personas. And I'm going to guess that on the call today, out of, the 181 people that we have on here right now, we have people who fall into each one of these categories, people who are looking at this from all different angles. I always joke that this is like the Akira Kurosawa movie Rashomon, which if you haven't seen it, is, about a murder that takes place. And, there's 12 different points of view about how to look at it. And so, document management is a little bit like that. Everybody has a different type of concern about, how they're going to manage documents, how they're going to do that reliably over time. And what SharePoint Embedded allows you to do is it allows you to use your Microsoft 365 trusted services, the capabilities that you know and trust, to manage documents for every app. That's really what it comes down to. Now, we've been talking about this in a wide variety of ways, and what we have landed on after talking to customers as we've traveled all around the world is this. You can supercharge Copilot with SharePoint Embedded. So SharePoint Embedded quickly brings documents online and up to date with security, Copilot, Microsoft 365 compliance, Office collaboration, and a whole lot more for every app and agent. And so as we're all kind of going through this big transition together, this transition from kind of standard interaction with documents to AI-powered interaction to agent-based interaction, SharePoint Embedded plays this critical role. It helps you move all of those documents outside of whatever systems don't have these capabilities and into a standard platform so that you have all of these capabilities quickly and easily as part of whatever app you're working with. Now, as I said before, this is outside of SharePoint Online, but still inside Microsoft 365. And we have these customers right here, some of the ones that we're working with. These are just the ones who signed up and said, yes, you can use our logo. I've talked a lot about M-Files. M-Files is an ECM provider. They're an ISV. They actually provide enterprise content management. And what they're doing is they're standardizing on SharePoint Embedded precisely so that they can help their customers through this revolution that's happening right now. Kantar and ENI, these are both enterprises that are using us. They're using us for different use cases. But, really, in every case, it boils down to how do you get documents out of whatever silo they're in so that you can use them. Okay, Elliot, thank you very much for files. I shouldn't look at the chat while I'm talking. I'm very distracted now. This is very good. I like it when Homer Simpson shows up. But anyway, so there are enterprises that are using this to do exactly what you would expect, right? They're trying to take these documents, which are stored outside of M365, and bring them into a modern platform so that they can do everything they want to on them. Now, when you think about what this looks like, we have this core innovation that's really driving this, and it boils down to this notion of partitions. We don't talk about it a lot, but Microsoft 365 is functionally a partitioned system. We end up with the storage capability, and SharePoint Online is one partition. OneDrive is another partition, right? We're using the same storage capability, but they're logically isolated, they're separated. And what SharePoint Embedded is it's a new partition in M365. You interact with it with your graph APIs, so there's no user experience as part of it. So this is what I mean when I say it's stored inside Microsoft 365, but outside of SharePoint Online. So it's perfect for whatever apps you're developing that are custom apps. Now, we have a great new innovation that's also part of this. It's a new document management primitive, because remember, SharePoint Embedded is your document management capabilities from SharePoint Online. It's not all of SharePoint Online, it's the document management capabilities. And file storage containers are designed to be lightweight. They're specifically designed for apps. So you can have many of them, we talk about being able to have 100,000 of them, but the reality is you can have 1 million of them or 2 million of them. We have one customer who's talking to us about having 12 million of them. And so, that 12 million is still something which is a couple years away as we're working on making sure that we can scale out to meet customer demand. But at the same time, for the vast majority of customers, you can have whatever you want. And this means that in code, it's easy for you to model your security boundaries, your business constructs, and you don't have to do any kind of weird gymnastics, in terms of like creating a file storage container and then creating a bunch of subfolders. Anytime you need to, you can essentially just instantiate a new file storage container. So it's a new way, actually, of managing documents as part of whatever your apps you have. So there's a lot of ways that we can talk about the features, but the short version is that the M365 features you know and love, those come through when you store your documents in SharePoint Embedded. And so a good one that people talk to us about a lot is collaboration. They want to make sure that they have this one-click collaboration experience. When you're working with a document which is stored outside of SharePoint Online, this is actually very difficult. And so, you end up going through some interesting gymnastics again around the question of like, let's download a document, let's upload a document, then let's work on it, that kind of thing. And in this case, you just get that one-click collaboration experience, which I'll show you here in just a second. Copilot, I'm going to show you this. Everything's automatically included in Copilot, and of course, compliance and core storage. And we can go pretty deep on all of these, but the model that you should have in your head is that for all of these documents which are stored offline someplace or outside of Microsoft 365 someplace, it's easy for you to bring these into Microsoft 365 to get your Microsoft 365 capabilities as part of any app that you're working on. Now, I also like to talk about Copilot 6 ways with SharePoint Embedded because Copilot is obviously a very dynamic system. I love Paolo's demo. It shows, some of the flexibility with Copilot right now. So you can use SharePoint Embedded content in M365 Copilot Chat, in your in-app Copilot Chat, SharePoint Embedded Custom Agent, which I'll show you. You can use it with the retrieval API. That's one of the APIs that Paolo wasn't able to show. You can use it in Azure AI Foundry. That is actually here coming soon, and Copilot Studio is coming soon. And so there's lots of flexibility as we transition over to this AI-driven workflows for everything about how you can harness the data which is stored in SharePoint Embedded very easily. Okay, I'll show you a quick demo. So if you're brand new to SharePoint Embedded, this is going to give you kind of everything that you want. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by looking at our containers. And so this is the file storage container system that I was talking about before. So when you're thinking about this new file and document management primitive, I only have, I guess it's 11 of them in here, but you can have 100,000, you can have 1 million of them, right? And it's up to your app how those are displayed, how those are managed. In this app, this is just a simple vibe-coded app. I built it with GitHub Copilot agents, and basically, it's just designed to show you a web interface. But we have customers that are doing this entirely as a web service. There is no user interface that they built on top of this. They basically tie everything to a ServiceNow case, and so ServiceNow cases are the user interface for their SharePoint embedded documents. So you have tons of flexibility. So I'm going to go ahead in here and I'm going to click on open for this one, and it's now going to list documents. Now, for those of you who like APIs, let me show you the APIs. For those of you who don't like APIs, I'll be back in just a minute. But you can see we're just using standard graph calls. There's nothing special in here. And so if I look at this top one, you can see it's got this graph and it's looking at drives and it's got a drive ID in there and it's doing children. So if you are used to working with the Graph API and you're used to working with drives and drive items, you're going to be very comfortable in SharePoint Embedded. The request has the authorization header that you would expect, and the response is the regular OData that you would expect. Now notice we have this fun web URL right here. This is the magic that actually powers that one-click collaboration. Okay, everybody who doesn't like APIs, come on back. I'm going to close this. And what we're going to do is we're going to do that one-click collaboration. Okay, so here's the click. It's going to open up Word. Now, if I had my system configured this way, it would actually open up in the desktop app. I don't have my system configured that way because I have a sort of a mess of identities here. But this is just working on the regular old Word. This is not a subset of Word. It is not a specialized version of Word. All the at mentions work, presence indicators work, comments and sharing work. And you can see it's just changing everything in real time. So I can say, hello, Microsoft 365 community, right? And you'll see up here it's doing the saving thing exactly like you would expect, right? And so if I close that and I come back into it, boom, here we are. We have everything saved in there. Now, again, because you are used to Microsoft 365, this doesn't seem special. However, when you're working with documents which are stored as part of any other app, this is very difficult to do. SharePoint Embedded delivers this through any app that you want to. So if you want to bring that document storage for whatever app you're working with into the Microsoft 365 modern world, SharePoint Embedded is the tool that lets you do that. Okay, so there's tons of stuff that we could look at in here. It has all of the ECM capabilities that you would expect, from version history to conversions to previewing. There are metadata capabilities in here, and of course you can search on metadata, etc. I always like to show the versions on this one because this is the one that I do, most of my demos on. And so you see that I've got a whole bunch of different versions here, which is super fun. Obviously, the rest of them that I'm not working with as much, I don't get quite the same versions. But if I wanted to here, I can also preview things, right? So preview comes built in for more than 300 file types. And so it's dead easy to work with almost any type of data that you want to work with. Okay. So that's a quick demo of that. I'm going to switch over now to the retrieval API. Now, again, if you like APIs, you're going to love this section. If you don't like APIs, bear with me just a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. I'm going to say, tell me about banks, right? And I'm doing this just because I happen to know that we have some data in here. And so it's going to go out and it's going to use the Copilot retrieval API to access our semantic query directly. And you can see that it gives us these retrieval hits. It tells us what the document is, and it gives us the extracts, which tells us the bank information, right? Now, I'm going to actually want to go in and I want to look at the API Explorer here because since this is an API call, the whole goal is that you can use this in whatever agentic experience you want to develop. And that includes Azure AI Foundry agentic experiences. So you'll see that we're just posting over to the retrieval API. We have the regular authorization that you would expect. And now this is where it starts to get special. So you see the query string in here. Tell me about the banks, right? I guess I just said me about banks. That's some great typing on my part. You can see our data source is SharePoint Embedded. And then we have a data source configuration where we're putting in what's called a container type ID. Don't worry too much about that. It's part of working with SharePoint Embedded. When you are working with SharePoint Embedded, you're going to know what a container type ID is. And then, of course, we say, hey, give us 10, maximum of 10 results, etc. So exactly what you saw in the form. And then we start to get the things back, right? And so here on our retrieval hits, you see we get our different extracts, right? So we have slide 1, slide 11, right? And then we have a different one here, which only has one of them, but it gives you the relevant score and everything else. So this is an incredibly powerful tool. Now, I said that we can do Copilot 6 ways. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do that same query actually in Copilot, Microsoft 365 Copilot chat. I'm just going to say, tell me about banks. And the funny part here is that because the context is different, what Microsoft 365 Copilot is going to do is it's now going to do two things. It is both going to say, hey, here's the general information about banks. You just said, tell me about banks. So I'm going to educate you about banks. And then it's going to come in and say, hey, we also have some interesting information here within our enterprise, right? And so it's able to do both the general stuff that you would expect from an LLM, and then also the more specific stuff that is related to exactly what's going on in your enterprise. And so there's lots of different ways to access the data which is stored as part of SharePoint Embedded. Okay, in the 2 minutes I have left, I'm going to give you a couple of resources. I think I'm sharing this. There we go. We saw a very quick demo, so there's a bunch of stuff going on in here. I didn't actually show you the Entra in action, but it does depend on Microsoft Entra ID. So if you're used to using that, you're going to know how it works. Graph API, you saw that. One-click collaboration, preview. It has a special agent that we ship with this, which is very similar to creating the custom conversations like Paolo did inside SPFx. It's a little different, but it's the same basic idea. We saw the Copilot chat, and we saw how we can do versions, talked about metadata, all that good stuff. Now, when I think about this, broadly speaking, Copilot has this incredible capability to merge data from across systems. And what SharePoint Embedded lets you do is it lets you actually do that across custom apps that are out there. And so Boulder Innovations, this is the demo app that I was showing you. You're able to bring information in from that. If you have ISVs that are using SharePoint Embedded, such as mFiles or AvePoint, who I talked about, you're able to then also get information from there. So Copilot ends up being this single pane of glass, accessing all of these data sources for all the information that's most important to you. And SharePoint Embedded is a great way to do this for apps which are not part of your core app system. Okay, we have a bunch of stuff coming in Azure AI Foundry, but we're about out of time, so I'm not going to go in deep. Watch for this. It's super cool if you're an Azure AI developer. Our Power Automate connectors are going to be GA either a little bit later this month or first thing in January. We have 47 different activities. It's pretty super cool. And then we are working on a bunch of big boulders. So the one that people usually ask me about is Microsoft 365 Archive and Backup. So Archive, public previews in January. Backup is coming soon. Special environments, we have GCC is done. GCC High is coming next. So if you're working in one of these special environments, SharePoint Embedded is also available to you. There's a ton of resources. I'm going to go ahead and paste these into the chat after I turn things back over to Vesa. And I think that's just about it. I will go back in here and answer all the questions that I find. But thank you very much. I hope everybody has a great holiday season, and I look forward to seeing you in the new year.
Excellent. Thank you, Reid, on that one. Really, really cool. And a great recap on all of the awesome capabilities what we have within SharePoint Embedded. It is a really, really cool platform. And again, like Reid was saying, the Azure integration, all of that is coming soon. Super excited on that side as well. It's good to be aware on the art of possible within SharePoint Embedded. But again, thank you, Paolo. Paolo needed to drop a bit earlier today, so he's already out. Really, really cool demo on using the Copilot APIs in SharePoint Framework Solution. And thank you, Reid, on SharePoint Embedded's latest features on that side. Now, next week, on 16th of December, we do have Reid one more weekly call on Tuesday before we go to the break. 16th is the last one. So Fabian is going to be there and talking about Copilot Studio and MCP from zero to shipping a real event agent. This is a solution what Fabian has been creating, just to mock up a Copilot and agentic experiences. Then I'm going to do a quick intro on the SharePoint Pages agent in the Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is something new which we rolled out in Ignite. And that's going to be then the last community call and will be out for this year for Tuesday call. And then we'll be out for 3 weeks on the Tuesday call. Thursday call does continue throughout the year. We will never break that call sequence. So just letting everybody know on that. Now, in the meanwhile, if you're interested, if you're in a Discord, we do have more than 3,000 members in our Discord server. Really cool to see this one growing as well. Great location to ask questions and engage other people within the community. If you are in the Discord side of the house, awesome option to engage. We are always also looking for feedback on this call. So especially it helps us on, especially if you have positive feedback and a quote which you can share, it helps us on justifying these calls also in the future for our management chain. We do know that these are valuable calls though, so no problems there. This recording will be available, or the recording of this call will be available within 24 hours at the Microsoft Community Learning YouTube channel. Typically much faster than that. So typically it's 18 hours or less, and then we'll tweet in LinkedIn and social media whenever the call is available. Next call on next Tuesday, and then we'll be out and back on 13th of January within 2026. But that's it for now. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you for awesome engagement in the chat. Have a great rest of the year and see you next year if you're not here for December 16th. We'll see how it goes, but we'll be here, definitely. Thank you everybody. Have a great rest of the week. Bye-bye.